The numbers glowing on the microwave read for 12 a.m. On any other morning at this exact time, my hands would already be buried in dough. The oven preheating, stock simmering, timers set. The kitchen would be alive, flour on my apron, spices on the counter, lists taped to the cabinets. But today, the granite countertop sat completely bare, cold, sterile, final. I didn't shed a tear. I didn't write some emotional goodbye note begging for understanding. I simply placed one thick envelope in the very center of the island perfectly, even with the marble veins. On the front, stamped in bold red ink, service declined. I walked out, locked the door behind me, and climbed into the waiting Uber without once glancing at the window. There was nothing to look back at. Only forward. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I love knowing who's part of our community to understand why I walked away. You have to understand how my family was engineered. I was never just the cook, never just the helper. I was the unseen support beam of the entire household, the part that holds the ceiling up so the chandelier can sparkle. They got to shine because I stayed hidden for years. I hand calligraphed 200 Christmas cards because my handwriting looked classier than my mother's. I baked 500 sugar cookies every December for my father's business clients because store-bought didn't have heart. It's coordinated. Every vacation, itinerary, every birthday schedule, every hotel booking and emergency. And the only reward I ever received was the same rehearsed line said with a smile. "You're so good at this." Rachel, it wasn't praise, it was the lock on the cage. Recently, I learned a term that explained my entire life: the glass child. Traditionally, it means the healthy sibling of a sick child, the one who must be perfect, quiet, self-sufficient, so all attention can be directed to the crisis. But in my house, the crisis wasn't illness. The crisis was Justin's ego. My parents never looked at me. They looked through me to admire him. I was the glass. He was the view. My usefulness was crystal clear, polished dishes, color-coded spreadsheets, flawless dinners. But my humanity was invisible. If I didn't break, they didn't have to admit I existed. So when planning began for their Ruby Jubilee 3 weeks ago, their 40-year vow renewal, the roles were already etched in stone. 55 guests. A lush garden party that needed to feel effortless but cost a fortune in labor. "We need a tasting menu," Mother Susan said casually as she scrolled Pinterest on her iPad. "Something refined. That risotto you make? And the tiramisu with the espresso-soaked lady fingers." She didn't ask whether I had time. She didn't ask whether I wanted to cook a 5-course meal for 55 people. She assigned it. Rachel can handle the food. Justin and Tiffany will handle the aesthetics. Aesthetics meant buying flowers with my father's credit card. Handling the food meant 72 hours over a flaming stove. But I nodded. Because that's what invisible pillars do. We keep the structure from collapsing, then the digital invitation went out. My phone buzzed. "You're invited to the Ruby Jubilee." I opened the link, red velvet background, gold lettering, a chandelier-level production. I scrolled to the bottom to the host committee. Susan and David, Justin, and Tiffany refreshed the page twice, thinking surely my name was missing by accident. It wasn't. The people buying bouquets were listed as hosts. The person cooking every single thing on the menu was nothing. I found my mother arranging hydrangeas in the sunroom. "Mom," I said, holding up my phone, "my name isn't on the host committee." She didn't even pause. "Oh, honey, don't be dramatic. The template allows only 4 names. Tiffany loves this sort of thing, and you'll be in the kitchen anyway. You'll be working, not hosting." The word hit me like an iron weight. Working. I wasn't a daughter celebrating her parents' love. I was the unpaid staff. And then she smiled. Actually smiled and said, "And honestly, no one does it like you. We're so lucky." Lucky, the word people use when they receive something precious for free. I walked out of that room, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to try harder. I felt the need to do the math. The slow ache of injustice sharpened into a blade. 1 week before the party, I was meticulously testing the mascarpone to espresso ratio for the tiramisu, the one dessert that always froze conversations midair, when Tiffany floated into the kitchen wearing perfume that smelled like wealth and entitlement. She didn't offer to help, she just leaned against the island and watched. "Looks messy," she said. "It looks perfect when it's finished." She pulled out her phone. "Hold up. Let me get a content shot for the event page." She snapped a picture of my hands, my work, my recipe, and 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. There it was, prepping my great-grandma's secret recipe for the big day. "Can't wait to share this family legacy with you all. Hashtag host life. Hashtag secret ingredient. Tiffany's great-grandma came from Ohio and considered mayonnaise a spice. This dessert, this legacy, it was mine." "Tiffany," I said carefully, "you captioned that like you made it." She laughed, a soft, airy laugh that erased me. "Relax, Rachel. It's just marketing. It sounds better coming from the doctor's wife than the single sister. People want a story, not a recipe." That's when I understood. To them, I wasn't a human being. I was a production line for their lifestyle brand. But the real breaking point came 48 hours before the party. I was chopping celery for the stock when my iPad, still synced to the family cloud, answered a FaceTime call between my mom and Mom. Justin, on its own, they didn't see me. But I heard every word. "Mom, Justin said, are you sure Rachel can handle this? 55 plates is a lot. Maybe we should hire help so the food isn't late, it'll reflect badly on us." For a moment, hope flickered. Maybe he was finally concerned about me. Then he laughed. "I just don't want people thinking we cheaped out. Rachel loves playing servant. It makes her feel useful. It's not like she has anything else going on. No husband, no career." I waited, begging in silence for my mother to defend me. "She needs this," my mom replied. "It gives her purpose. Honestly, we're doing her a favor." The call ended. The silence was louder than a scream. 20 years of spotless kitchens and silent labor, and in one moment, the truth was undeniable. I had fallen for a lie, the sunk cost fallacy of love. I believed that if I just kept working, loving, giving, sacrificing, one day the equity would turn into respect. But love isn't a retirement fund. You can't earn affection with unpaid labor. The account wasn't empty by accident. They refused to pay. I looked down at the celery. The list of ingredients. The bag of espresso beans. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sorrow. I felt something cold and final, like a judge slamming a gavel. "Bankruptcy," I whispered. "I am declaring moral bankruptcy." I put the knife down. I didn't chop another stalk. If they wanted a servant, they could hire one. If they wanted Rachel, she was no longer free. I didn't throw anything. I didn't break anything. Revenge isn't hot, true. Retaliation is ice cold and wordless. I opened my laptop, not to search recipes, but to pull up market rates. I found 3 luxury catering companies in the area. I checked their pricing for private events, tasting menus, on-site chefs, service fees, rush fees. I opened a blank document and typed a single word at the top. Centered and bold: invoice. As started itemizing every hour I had spent planning the menu. $1.50 an hour, 5 hours, $250. Every hour I had spent shopping, driving to for different specialty markets to find a specific grade of Parmesan. My father liked $75 an hour, 4 hours, $300. Then the big one: prep and execution. A private chef for a 5-person plated dinner. The market rat to us, staggering. I typed it in. To $500, I added a rush fee of 20%. Because technically they were booking me with 0 notice as a professional. The total came to $4,500. I stared at the number. It wasn't about the money. It was about the value for 29 years. My value had been 0. Tonight, I was setting the price. I printed the invoice in the thick cream-colored cardstock Mimither used for her thank you notes. It looked official. It looked final. Then I booked the flight one way, first class, San Diego. My best friend Chloe had been begging me to visit for years. I hot away said no because I had responsibilities. I had to drive my mom to her appointments. I had to watch Justin's dog. I had to be the pillar. Not anymore. The flight left at 6 a.m. the next morning. That gave me 8 hours. I went back to the fridge. It was stocked with $600 worth of premium ingredients. But instead of starting the marathon of chopping, searing, and reducing, I did something else. I took massive bag of spinach, unwashed, still in its plastic farm crate, and placed it center stage on the counter. I took the block of dark chocolate, Hardeza brick, and set it next to Thespinache. I took the raw shrimp, still in their icy shells, and arranged them in a glass bowl. I didn't hide them. I've displayed them. I created a still life painting of raw potential and absolute neglect. It looked like a cooking show set before the chef arrives. Beautiful, expensive, useless. I walked over to Thebel's shelf and pulled down the Famila recipe binder. I flipped to the tiramisu podge, the one stained with coffee from years of use. The one Tiffany had claimed was her great-grandma's legacy. I took a bright yellow sticky note and wrote in my best calligraphy, "Tiffany, since this is your great-grandma's secret recipe, I'm sure you know exactly how to temper the eggs without scrambling them. Good luck, number familijasi." I stuck the note right over the instructions. Then I went upstairs. I've packed one suitcase, not my practical cloths. I packed the silk dress I never wore. I packed the swimsuit I hadn't touched in 3 years. I packed my passport. I walked through the house one last time. The living room was set up for the party. The rental chairs were stacked in the corner. The flowers were in buckets, waiting to be arranged. I felt a ghost of the old panic. Who will do the flowers? Who will set the tables? Then I remembered Justin's laugh. Rochello's playing servant. Let them play servant, I thought. I walked into the kitchen. I placed the heavy cream cardstock invoice right next to the raw shrimp. I took a red stamp pad from the junk drawer. My mother used it for holiday crafts and a stamp that said Declan. I pressed it onto the invoice. Service declined. It was the loudest thing I had ever said, and I didn't have to open my mouth. The sun came up at 6:45. Vina M. The house should have smelled like roasted garlic, simmering stock, and baking pastry. It should have been a symphony of controlled chaos. Instead, it was silent. A tomb with a marble island. I wasn't there to see it, but I know exactly how it played out. Ik know the choreography of that kitchen better than my own heartbeat. Suzanne would have come down first, wearing her silk robe, coffee mug in hand, expecting to inspect the progress. Tiffany would have been right behind her, already dressed in her pre-party casual outfit. White linen, dangerous for a kitchen, but safe for a supervisor. They pushed open the swinging door. They didn't walk into a bakery. They walked into an art exhibit of their own negligence. There was no smell of espresso, no sound of a mixer worry. Just the hum of their refrigerator and the sight of the raw ingredients I had arranged with surgical precision. The block of chocolate sat there, mocking them. The unwashed spinach wilted slightly under lead in the cabinet lighting. The shrimp starred back through the glass bowl, grand cold. Where is she? I imagined Tiffany asking, her voice sharp, scanning the room as if I were hiding in the pantry. The caterers are coming at 10 to set the tables. The food is supposed to be plating prep by now. Fenthi saw it. The cream card's stock envelope centered. Impossible to miss. Susan picked it up. Her hands, usually so steady when arranging flowers or manipulating gilt, would have trembled. She opened it. She didn't find a groveling apology. She didn't find a frantic note about a medical emergency. She found a ledger. Invoice number 001. Amount due $4,500. And the red stamp bright as a wound. Service Declan, what is this? Susan whispered. She probably turned the paper over, looking for the real note. The one that said, "Just kidding. Check the oven." But the oven was cold. Tiffany walked over to the recipe book. She saw the yellow sticky note plastered over the tiramisu instructions. She read it out loud. "Tiffany, since this is your great-grandma's secret recipe, I'm sure y'all know exactly how to temper the eggs without scrambling them. Good luck." Silence. The kind of silence that screams. Then the panic. My phone, currently in airplane mode somewhere over Nevada, began to log the attempts. First Susan, then Justin, then David. Voicemail, voicemail, voicemail. They realized the math. It was 9:15, guests, 55s of the city cellite, my father's biggest clients. The country club board members were arriving at 1 o'clock. They had raw shrimp. They had hard chocolate. And they had absolutely no idea how to turn one into the other. Justin ran in, hair half gel. "What do you mean? She's gone." "She can't be gone. She always caves." "She didn't cave," Susan said, staring at the invoice. "She billed us. They tried to call catering companies. But you don't book a 5-course tasting menu for 55 people on a Saturday morning. You get laughed at. You get hung up on. We can cook it tursels." Justin suggested, looking at raw shrimp. "How hard can risotto be? It's just rice, right?" 40 minutes later, after burning the first batch of garlic hand. Realizing they didn't know how to shield the shrimp without mangling them, they made the call. The only call left. The collapse happened in slow motion. At 1 o'clock, the guests arrived. The driveway filled with Mercedes and Lexuses. Women in garden party florals and men in summer suits walked through the front door, expecting the ruby jubilee of Theed Cade. They were handed glasses of champagne by the hired servers who looked confused and embarrassed. Then they were ushered to the buffet tables. There were no silver chafing dishes filled with truffle risotto. There were no delicate plates of seared scallops. They were cardboard boxes, stacks off them, red and blue dominoes. Justin had tried to save face. He had transferred the pepperoni and cheese slices onto the antique silver platters, as if presentation could mask the smell of desperation and grease. "It's a whimsical throke," he told the head of surgery at the local hospital. "We wanted to keep it fun. Who doesn't love a pizza party?" The head of surgery looked at fellow warm slice of pepperoni, sweating on family heirlooms. He looked at Susan, who was smiling so hard her face looked like it might crack. "Chiming hest." He didn't take a slice. The whisper started 5 minutes later. "Is this a joke? Where's Rachel? She usually handles the food. I heard she walked out. Look at Tiffany. She looks mortified." It wasn't just a bad party, it was a public undressing. The Haas committee was exposed without fine visible pillar. The roof had caved in, everyone could see the rubble. They've stood there in their expensive clothes, surrounded by cheap pizza, watching their reputation dissolve one bite at a time. And the best part? They couldn't even blame the caterer because the caterer wasn't there. The kitchen was empty. The invoice was on the counter. And the bill was finally coming due, while the Ruby Jubilee was imploding 3,000 miles away under the weight of lukewarm pepperoni and whispered gossip. I was standing in a kitchen that looked nothing like the one I had fled. There was no marble island. There were no stainless steel appliances that cost more than a car. Just warm yellow sunlight pouring through a window that overlooked the Pacific Ocean and thesmol of cilantro and lime. I was in San Diego. Chloe handed me a chopped onion here. She said, "Don't cut them perfectly. We're making tacos, not submitting a geometry project, elawed." It was a rusty sound. I hadn't lawed in a kitchen in 20 years. Usually, cooking was a performance review. I was destined to fail. Here, it was just lunch. My phone was sitting on the counter face down. Every few minutes, it would buzz against the wood, a frantic vibration. A plea, a demand. "Are you going to check that?" Chloe asked, stirring the ground beef. "No," I said, sprinkling salt over the tomatoes. "I'm letting it ring. It's the sound of them realizing the remote control doesn't work anymore." We ate on our balcony, balancing paper plates on our knees. Theard tasted like salt and freedom. I took a bite of the taco. It wasn't a compextraful risotto. It was simple. It was messy. It was the best thing I had ever tasted because I didn't have to serve Ito anyone else first. After lunch, Chloe went back inside and returned with something wrapped in a soft cloth. I want to show you something. She said, I bought this when I was in Tokyo last year. I was saving it for when Yo finale came out here. I see. It was a bowl, a ceramic tea bowl, dark and earthy. But it had a jagged scar running right through the center. But the scar wasn't ugly. It was gleaming. It was filled with bright simmering gold. It's called kanugi, Chloe said softly, tracing the gold line with her thumb. In Japan, when a precious piece of pottery breaks, they didn't throw it away. And they don't try to hide the cracks with invisible glue dough. Pretend it never happened. I looked at the bowl. It looked stronger for having been broken. They mend the cracks with lacquer dusted with powdered gold. She continued. The philosophy is, Fath's break is a part of the objector story, not something to disguise. Their pair makes it more beautiful and more valuable than it was before it was broken. I reached out and touched the gold vein. It was raised, textured. It demanded to be felt. For 29 years, he whispered. I've been trying to be fine visible glue. I tried to hold the family together so tightly that no one would notice the cracks. I thought if I was invisible enough, perfect enough, the jagged edges wouldn't cut. Chloe shook her head. You're not the glue, Ra. You're the bowl, and they dropped you. It looked at the ocean. The waves were crashing against the rocks, breaking and reforming over and over again. I realized then that my good girl syndrome, my role as the invisible pillar, had been an attempt to stay wool in a house that hammered away ATM every single day. I was terrified of breaking. I thought breaking meant failure. I thought breaking meant I was useless. But looking at that bowl, I saw the truth. The break is where the light gets in. The break is where the gold goes. I had to shatter. I had to walk out of that kitchen, leave the washroom, decline the service, and rip the contract in half. That was the break, and this peace, this sunlight. This realization that I am a person worthy of being fed, not just a machine belt to feed others. This was the gold. I'm not going to fix it this time, I said, my voice steady. I'm not going to go back and glue them back together. Chloe smiled and clinketed her beer bottle against mine. Good, because you can do kanugi on other people. You can only do it on yourself. I took a deep breath, inhaling the ocean air. I felt cracks in my spirit, the guilt, the obligation, the fear of being unloved. They were still there, but they weren't bleeding anymore. I was beginning to topple them. I picked up my phone. It overdared it over. The screen was full of notifications. Missed calls from Imather. Texts from Justin blaming me for the pizza disaster. A voicemail from my father asking where the hell the risotto was. I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel the urge to apologize. I felt valuable. I opened the camera app. I aimed it at Kanugi Bowl, sitting in the sunlight against the backdrop of the ocean. Isn't that a photo? It was time to send Stephanol receipt. It was Sunday evening when I finally sat down on the balcony. The sun was dipping below the horizon, painting the sky in streaks of yellow and burnt orange colors that felt turned, not arranged. I unlocked my phone. It vibrated in my hand like a trapped bird. 52 missed calls. Basha Sid text messages. The family group chat, which I had been silenced in for years, was now a cacophone of rage and bargaining. I didn't read them all. I didn't need to. I just scanned the previews. Justin, you're end everything. Do you have any ID, ho, stupid? We looked. The head off surgery left at 2 p.m., Susan. How could you do this to your father? We are thelowing stock of the club. I told Virione you were sick. But then Tiffany found that receipt. Call me immediately. David, unacceptable behavior. Rachel, you need to come home and fix this. We can discuss the money. But this stunt was immature. Tiffany, I can't, Belyavo, left a note on the recipe book. That was just mean. I scrolled through thrall of text. There wasn't a single message asking if I was okay. There wasn't a single question about why I was in San Diego or if I had arrived safely. There was only concern for the event, for the image, for the service I had failed to render. They weren't mourning me absence. They were mourning their applions. The toaster had stopped working, and they were angry they couldn't make toast. You don't ask the toaster how it feels. You just bang on it until it works or you throw it away. I looked at the invoice photo in my camera roll. Then I looked at the photo I had just taken me barefoot holding a taco with the golden Kyugi bowl in the background. I opened the group chat. I didn't type a paragraph. I didn't explain the glass child syndrome or the years of neglect. Explanations are for people who listen. Invoices are for people who take. I attached the photo off Sunset View. Then I typed thing voice for $4,000. $500 is canceled. Consider it a severance package. I am officially resigning from the position off daughter appliance effective immediately. Do not contact me for scheduling, catering, or emotionologists. I am no longer available. Hit send. I watched the little read indicators pop up. Susan, Justin, Tiffany, David. 3 dots appeared. Someone was typing. Probably a threat. Probably a guilt trip. Probably a command. I didn't wait to see it. I went to the settings. Block contact Susan, confirm. Block contact Justin, confirm. Block contact David, confirm. Block contact Tiffany, confirm. The phone went silent. The vibration stopped. The notifications cleared. I put the phone down on the table and looked out at the ocean. For 29 years, I had been terrified of this silence. I thought silence meant I was alone. I thought silence meant I had been abandoned. But sitting there, listening to the waves and the distant sound of Chloe laughing inside the apartment, I realized I had it backwards. Silence isn't abandonment, it's peace. I didn't fix the party. I didn't save the anniversary. I let it burn. And in the ashes of their expectations, I finally found the one thing I've been cooking for everyone else my entire life. I've found myself. I spent 29 years trying to earn a seat at a table that was built on my back. I thought if I served enough courses, if I cleaned enough messes, if I made myself small enough to fit in the cracks, they would finally pull out a chair and say, "Side down, Rachel. You've done enough." But they never were going to because, as long as I was serving, I couldn't be seated. I'm talking to you now. Yes, you. The one listening to this while you fold laundry for people who won't notice sites clean. The one prepping meals for a family that eats without waiting for you. The one who feels like the glue keeping a shattered vase from falling apart. If you are the one keeping the lights on for people who leave you in the dark, turn them off. It's scary, I know. You think the house will collapse without you. You think they'll hate you, but let me tell you what happens when you walk out of the kitchen. Let me tell you what happens when you decline these advice. You stop being a utility and you start being a person. They will realize they needed you. Oh, they will realize it the second the pizza box is arrive. But by then, you'll be somewhere else. You'll be at a table where you didn't have to earn your seat. You'll be at a table where the only thing you have to bring is your hunger. So here is my question for you today. I want you to look at your life like a business ledger. Look at the sunk cost. Look at labor you are pouring into the black hole of ungrateful relationships. Cherie's story if you have ever had to walk away to find your worth. If you've ever had to break yourself to let the goal get in. And tell me in the comments, what is the one job in your family that you are resigning from today? Is it the peacemaker, the planner, the punching bag? Drop your resignation letter in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one of them because we aren't appliances. We are the architects of our own tables. And it's time to start eating.